Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Max in Garden City with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Max.
Oh, good morning, Kevin. I have a question about crime and punishment. Don't you think it's time that we revisited what is cruel and unusual punishment?
I've been a fan of the rod as opposed to the carrot, the stick over the carrot, because I think the criminal justice system has gotten too mamby-pamby. However, you're living in an AOC world, sir.
Yeah, I'm looking more toward Singapore, having been there a number of times. They're a very civilized people, very well organized, very polite, and they have corporal punishment. Medically supervised caning. What's wrong with that?
Well, people are going to start talking about their rights being violated.
Well, the rights being violated are, as you say, are the porch package pirates.
Right.
Just all sorts of crimes that don't need to go to jail, and just a good, swift beating. And it would seem to me that would be far more of a deterrent in jail, if you know you're going to have the crud slapped out of you. And China very recently, some of the provinces have adopted the Singaporean system. They sent people over, learned how they did it, all the medical aspects. And in China, if you turn on Channel 2 at 2 a.m., you can watch.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about corporal punishment. If John Smith is going to get the crud beaten out of him, it'll be at 2 a.m. tomorrow, and you can tune in. You can sell ads, and mom and dad will watch as their son or daughter get the crud knocked out of them.
Well, I think there's something that they call shame.
So that's a big part of it.
Right. There's no shame anymore.
China,
right.
They will put traffic violators on page 2 of the newspaper. They'll even put them on TV in the evening. Shame is a wonderful tool, but if you combine shame with a physical beating, I don't mean 4 thugs in the prison yard kicking the crud out of you. I mean a doctor supervising to make sure you don't die or suffer serious injury.
Well, let's see how that plays out. Before we go, your thoughts on the upcoming war with Iran?
Well, I think that I saw something very similar with Iraq, and the war drums are being beaten louder and louder. Who knows the real distilled truth of the matter? I can make a lot of people unhappy. I would just say that we need to sit back, gather the evidence, be 100% sure that they are endangering our immediate interest. And if that plays out, then go bomb the crud out of them. But we can't just keep going on CNN, and you cannot trust just the CIA.
Right.
They've proven themselves to be partisan and unreliable.
Max, thank you for the call.
You take care, buddy.
All right. God bless. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So if you're just waking up, the President of the United States ordered an attack on Iran, and he called it off because now we have published reports saying that 150 people would be killed 10 minutes before the missiles were going to fire. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Here's our own Benjamin Hall with the latest.
President Trump has twice used Tomahawk missiles in the Middle East, and so it was entirely feasible that this was going to happen. And all the reporting suggests that this was both underway, very planned, and very close to U.S. forces striking Iranian targets. But at the very last minute, the president made the decision to call this off. The decision was originally made when the RQ-4 Global Hawk drone was shot down on Wednesday evening. President Trump then approved military strikes against Iran, and that operation was in its early stages, according to this reporting from the New York Times. Planes were in the air, Ships were in position, but no missiles had been fired when word came to stand down.
And we talked about this earlier today. We'll take your phone calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Congressman Mark Green says it's go time.
I think we clearly need a measured response here. I think the world needs to see, honestly, smoke and fire. I think Kim Jong-un needs to see smoke and fire. There's been an attack on the U.S. military, and if we don't respond, we're incentivizing future attacks. I think it's time to act.
And many people say that we don't want to get into a war. The president himself ran against getting us into conflicts. You look at the president's foreign policy, as we discussed earlier today. Look, ISIS done, Al-Qaeda done, the Taliban done. But Iran, very different. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. The Iranians, they play by their own rules since the Islamic Revolutionary Guard took over in 1979. Right? How many of us remember how heartbroken were we when they took over our embassy? They held our people hostage. America held hostage for many, many years. Remember that? Nightline? That's how Nightline came into being, those of you that remember television. Joining us now with analysis, insight, Congressman Russ Fulcher. Monday he was here. Now he's back to work in Washington. He's everywhere. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. Hi.
Good to have you with us. You know, when we were talking Monday, you said, well, hopefully this Iranian situation will calm down and we can talk about China. Obviously we will, but your thoughts initially over the overnight reports, I'm sure you have much more insight. I know you can only share so much with us here on KIDO Talk Radio about the president, according to published reports, calling off this strike against the Iranians.
Well, you know, this is just one more step in a long string of offenses that this regime has carried out against America. I think, you know, a lot of people don't realize just how far back this goes. And that culture, that nation they have, from their perspective, they've been at war with us for a long, long time. We just haven't recognized that. And some of their actions make it look like they even want us to respond. They want us to respond militarily, and so they're attempting to provoke that. So I think the president has acted wisely. I think that there is this is not over by a long shot, but the attempt and the general strategy is to try to address this more with holding down commerce and restricting it that way, Kevin. Another thing to remember is that we used to be extremely dependent on them for oil, and that's not the case anymore due to our advances with liquefied natural gas and the development of that here. We've been able to reduce that dependence, and they're hurting fiscally as a result of that, which probably leads to some of their aggression.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us, and we heard a little bit about that. They are hurt, they are wounded, and they're not very rational there. So with nothing to lose, maybe they continue to provoke us. We had a gentleman call earlier and say, why are we having drones flying over the Strait of Hormuz? Congressman Fulcher, you know the reason for that. I'll let you answer that question, sir.
Well, this is a part of the world that sponsors terrorism and is behind a lot of those attacks, and not just on us, but on that region as well. And if we're not paying attention to this there, then we're going to have to deal with it more here. And we learned that lesson the hard way, of course, with 9/11. And so the diligence has to remain. The security has got to stay in place. And, you know, Kevin, we take for granted sometimes that for the most part, we don't normally worry about being attacked on our own home front. But that security is not free, and that diligence has to remain. And if those measures aren't carried out overseas or on the opposition's turf, then they're bound to be carried out here.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us. Congressman, What's the mood in Washington after the news overnight? You just literally came off the House floor.
Well, we've been going through a series of appropriations, and that's always fun. But the actions going on, of course, with Iran have kind of shifted the thought process. And as you know, this is my first term, but when there is some type of an aggression that takes place, if there is a silver lining to it, there is just a little bit of unification that starts to take place. I mean, everybody on both sides of the aisle start to just stiffen their neck a little bit and say, okay, wait a minute, somebody is coming after us. They're taking aggressive steps, and some of that bipartisan, some of that seems to get pushed to the side a little bit. So, I'm thankful for that, and at least we have some common ground there.
Well, and there is a movement perhaps among the Democrats. We don't know about the Republicans. And again, this is just developing as we speak, sir, that they want the ability to give the president authorization to use force. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. Switching gears with you, China is on the back burner right now. The stock market having an epic run this week. But you said to me, Kevin, we need to tell the folks in Idaho what's going on behind the scenes with this trade war with China.
It's really important, and it's also impacting us. And it's frequent that I will get visitors from Idaho Industries, the wheat growers, the dairy industry, the various manufacturing industries that are utilizing steel and so on. And they come to my office and say, these tariffs hurt. And they do. And what I want to just point out to your listening audience is that they're also somewhat necessary. And the reason they are is that China has been a bad actor for a long, long time. And their actions have taken jobs from America, and they have transitioned those to China. And then China has used their industrial growth to do so as a bad steward. In other words, they don't have EPA type restrictions. Their environment and how they handle their waste is extremely poor. So we're kind of getting a lose-lose scenario. We're losing our jobs. We are growing their economy. They're a bad steward of their environment. And, oh, by the way, they block American imports going into their nation and steal intellectual property. So there's a whole host of issues that are behind this. And there's not a better time to go after them than when our economy is strong. And what we're finding, Kevin, is that we are winning this. The impact on the Chinese is much greater than the impact on America. And they may have a higher tolerance for pain, but the bottom line is that we are making progress here. And if we don't stick to our principles on this, then I don't think we'll ever prevail long-term with trade with China.
Congressman Fulcher, we appreciate it. Anything else you'd like to share with us today during the breaking news and everything else? So we appreciate it. I hope you had fun digging that ditch while you were here in Idaho.
Hey, there's some good therapy that comes with that. And so I did. But, just always appreciate you giving me an opportunity to communicate what's happening here. And hopefully I can add something to the conversation. We've got a great state. And the people of Idaho respond positively almost always when they know the facts. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Now, Congressman, we're trying not to be a pain. We appreciate you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us right from the House floor. His insight into China. We are winning that trade war, thank goodness. And hopefully some bipartisanship will come out of this situation with the Iranians. We'll talk about it next. Join the conversation now, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And coming up, one of the fastest muscle cars ever designed. Don't forget Glenn Beck today At 9 o'clock, please stop by and say hi if you're going to the Boise Music Festival tomorrow. We'll be there. We're introducing Logan Mize. He's a country guy. So we'll be on the stage at 4:30 and looking forward to saying hello to everybody. But Logan Mize, I believe, is the gentleman that we'll be introducing. I'm very excited to be a part of that. And, of course, it's a great event here. Privileged to just be a part of these events. Before you know it, it'll be Boise Music Festival tomorrow. And then Wednesday, we've got the 53rd Annual God and Country Festival at the Ford Idaho. You come up with these names. These just say the Ford Idaho Center, or the Idaho Center, the amphitheater, going to be great. Hope to see everybody there Wednesday night. That is free. Doors open at 5. Fireworks. You'll hear the music right here on 107.5 FM. 5:80 a.m. We'll have a post-game show where literally 15,000 people will walk by as we try to talk and get back to Clyde Lewis or George Norrie. And then we'll be back the following morning. And before long, it'll be the KIDO Talk Radio Spirit of Boise Balloon Classic brought to you by our friends at Cap Ed. So a lot going on. Coming up between now and Glenn Beck, though, the fastest Mustang ever will be arriving soon. We'll give you the breakdown on that. But more on the Iranian situation next. First, KIDO Talk Radio time, 8:26, traffic and weather together with Kevin Miller in the morning. Good morning, Dave.
On every occasion that we are engaged with the administration in terms of our national security, we make it very clear that in order to get engaged in any military activities, we must have a new authorization of use of military force, a UMF.
That's what she said, a UMF. That is House Majority Leader, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. Senate Minority Leader Chucky Schumer had this to say on KIDO Talk Radio.
I told the president that these conflicts have a way of escalating. The president may not intend to go to war here, but we're worried that he and the administration may bumble into a war.
There we have it. There's a vote of confidence from Senator Schumer. Thank you, Senator Schumer. And with friends like Senator Schumer, you know the old saying, who needs enemies? But there is a web, if you will, that the president might get himself stuck into. Now, we could ask the simple survey radio question, time to go to war. But there's more to it than that. You have the move by the House Democrats to impeach the president. You have the continued investigation into the spying on the president. You have this presidential election coming up. And then you have the unstable Iranians. And whether the president knowingly did this or whether he just rolled into it, he's embarrassed the mullahs. He's exposed the Obama peace treaty for what it was, a fraud. Heck, we bribed the Iranians. And what did they do? They took our bribe money and used it to fund Hezbollah, Hamas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and everything else anti-American. Now, the Iranians are just that girl that just doesn't want to be your friend, the guy that's just not into you. That's what they are. At least the mullahs, the boss men, the people in charge, they hate us. They hate me. They're not going to love us. It just ain't going to happen. Right? So when we're talking about war, every American president, just like in North Korea, has whiffed, moved it on to the next guy. Because of the sanctions, because of the nukes, because of the Strait of Hormuz, President Trump, who ran on getting us out of things and putting America first, might have no choice. Your thoughts on that? And the Oregon governor having the Oregon State Police hunt down Republicans. What will they think of next? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. Rolling right along. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to the birthday boy. We should have a birthday club. Hello, everybody. The birthday boy is here. Tea Party Bob on KIDO Talk Radio. Happy birthday, Tea Party Bob.
Well, thank you, Mr. Miller. I was wondering what you were doing up so late, sending me a message on Facebook. But then again, I have to tell you that I actually feel pretty good for being 74. Can't complain too much. You know, President Trump knows where the buck stops, and he was right to call off the strike against the Iranians. And I would rather trust his judgment than anyone else in the administration. I'd like to address Oregon Governor Walker's order to arrest Republican senators who have boycotted a vote on climate change funding. Here you have a governor who is worried about the carbon footprint from truckers and other carbon emitters when this state, like most Western states, has more smoke emitted into the air with just one wildfire and prescribed burns by the Forest Service than all of the carbon emitted by all of the trucks and cars in the entire state for a year or more. Fact is that Oregon Senators Markley and Wyden have proposed 4 bills to help the public businesses and agricultural operations combat the effects of wildfire smoke. This carbon tax proposed by Governor Walker shows us the limited knowledge she has regarding the problems with air pollution and how to deal with it. She thinks she can tax it out of existence like most Democrats, when in reality the problem rests with the federal government's rules and regulations that are causing most of the problems with carbon being thrust into the atmosphere by the prescribed burns of our forests and the wildfires that ensue from not managing the forests correctly. Instead of taxing people on carbon emissions, how about creating some real good-paying jobs by getting back to the business of logging and clearing the floors of our forests, as it would eliminate more atmospheric carbon every year than if Oregon banned driving gas and diesel-powered vehicles from its roads for an entire year or more. Most people forget that before we stopped logging our forests, we had very few wildfires as our forests were actually managed for the benefit of the public and proper use of our natural resources. The U.S. Forest Service are the real enemy and would have you believe that logging and clearing and cleaning up the forest, even thinning our forests, are the cause of the wildfires that ravage the West. But history tells us that it is the change in forest management that has caused the fires and the air pollution, not the logging. We have too many people who really don't understand the real problems and don't want to look into them. Let me just say to Governor Walker, look at history and stop looking at...
You mean Governor Brown?
Governor Brown, excuse me. I keep getting them confused, and one is a lot better than the other. Look at the history and stop looking at the pseudoscience of climate change, and you will not only help your state economically, but stop many of the wildfires that your senators are complaining ravage your state, both health-wise and economically. In other words, stop being a Democratic dummy and help the people of Oregon instead of hurting them with more burdensome taxes. I think that's about all I have to say for today.
Wow, did you say a Democratic dummy?
Democratic dummy. A DD.
A DD, D squared.
Time for change, Kevin.
I don't understand it, though. This Governor Brown, it's got the state police going after these guys?
Look, nobody can fix stupid. I told you that many times. And this is one of those times. You can't fix it. You have to change it. And that means you have to vote them out of office. And if they don't do that, well, then they're going to have to live with crap that they have to put up.
I see.
And, you know, when you take a look, as much as Governor Little has stayed away from the climate change conundrum, so to speak, he does believe in it. And he has said that. So don't be surprised if you see some things coming down the line over the next few years while he's still governor.
I see. Tea Party Bob, we appreciate it.
Kevin, thank you again for my birthday wish. I hope you have a wonderful day and keep out there hard charging for justice in the American way.
God bless, Tea Party Bob. Happy birthday.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good day.
Thank you. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. If you haven't heard the news, the president receiving some criticism from prominent people concerning not going after the Iranians.
Makes you wonder what's really happening behind the scenes, because the president is tough and he's not afraid, doesn't want to go to war. But we were getting word that they were going to do the strike before dawn because they didn't want to risk hitting civilians, children, Iranian military. What do you think is happening? What do you think the reason is that he pulled back last night?
It's hard to say. I mean, it does seem as if maybe there is the opportunity for more dialogue, perhaps. But I think also he'd want to speak to allies, get some sort of a coalition behind him. I think that first and foremost, it's important to protect oil tankers traveling through the Straits of Hormuz, and you could have other allied navies help with that, come on board with that. Whether there was pressure from other countries to avoid this, of course, many countries rely heavily on this oil in a way that the U.S. doesn't as much anymore.
Right.
You look out east, China, Japan, heavily reliant. 68, 70% of their oil comes from this part of the world. And it's interesting, actually, that this comes just before President Trump meets with President Xi in China, because this really puts the pressure on them more than it does 100%. On the U.S.
Right. North Korea is watching. All our enemies are watching. Of course, Assad is watching. And for 7 weeks, nothing but provocations. There's a price to pay for inaction. And that says a lot. And I think that we have put suffocating sanctions on them, and every day that passes by, they get weaker. However, every day that passes by, when they blow up 4 tankers and we do nothing, when they blow up our drone that cost $130 million and we do nothing, we know it's not going to end there. So at some point in the Middle East, no action looks like weakness, and weakness begets more attacks.
Yeah, I suppose you could flip that on its head and say that all the actions that we've seen from Iran suggest that the U.S. actions are working. That these
economic actions.
Yes. And perhaps this is Iran really backed into a corner. President Trump has made it clear he wants one thing. He wants to come back to the table. He wants to talk again about a better deal, a deal which involves...
And there you have it from earlier today, Fox and Friends on KIDO Talk Radio. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, you have people... You have folks that are saying it's time to go. I think that if truly the Iranians are in such a desperate situation and the president has made them look bad, the president has exposed Obama's bribery that hasn't worked. He's taken away their funding. So what do they have left to make him look bad? He might not have a choice. The Iranians may shoot down another drone. Now, I've got a story on the Kevin Miller Show Facebook site that says apparently there was a plane next to the drone with 35 people in it. And if you heard the clip earlier from Ray Amaya, the president trying to give the Iranians an out, saying, floating the idea that it was a mistake. No, there was a plane next to it with 35 people in it. The Iranians chose not to shoot down the plane with the people, which was a really smart move on their part. A really smart move on their part. You shoot down a plane full of people, Donald Trump has no choice but to go in. And the country is tired of war. One of the reasons why Barack Hussein Obama won. The country tired of war. One of the reasons why our enemies were emboldened, because of our neutered defense strategy under old Obama. The president comes in, we defeat ISIS. The president comes in, the Taliban wants to negotiate. The president comes in, continued challenges with Kim Jong-il or Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong, whatever his name is, in North Korea. But the Iranians are different cats. The Iranians believe... And I believe their own version of the book of Revelation. When the great fire comes down, they take on the great Satan. I'm not an expert on their theocracy, but this plays into their whole end of the world gambit. Now, how would we handle the Iranians? Very simply. We would either come in with our wild weasels jamming their radar, the missiles would lock in, we would take away their ability to defend themselves. Would we go in? Most likely not. We wouldn't have to. Militarily, whatever. Now, on the other hand, you could have the Iranians with their pirates and their mines line up the Strait of Hormuz. They've threatened to do that before. Then the president would have to wonder whether or not we're going to go in. The president, a shrewd negotiator. He's offering them a way out. However, the Iranians are so committed. You ever seen that movie, A Time to Kill? I guess it's a classic movie now. And unknown at the time, Samuel L. Jackson with an equally unknown Matthew McConaughey. It's a John Grisham book where it's set in Mississippi. You have the Klan. You have the young lady, Samuel L. Jackson's daughter, is brutalized by the Klan. He kills them. He goes on trial. The white attorney, McConaughey, defends him. And there's a guy ready to blow up Matthew McConaughey's house. And they catch him. And they beat him up and they arrest him. And Matthew McConaughey, or the sheriff, says to him, never get in the way between a fool and a cause. A fool with a cause. That's the Iranians. They back state-powered terrorism. And people, earlier today in the 6 o'clock hour, if you missed it, people are saying, look, Kevin Miller, we don't want war. We don't want neocons. We don't want to do this. We want America first. We want to secure our border. I totally get that. Man. But the Iranians might have decided that they are the fool with the cause. That is one topic at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. The other one, Oregon Governor Kate Brown sending the police to apprehend Republicans. You can read about it on KIDOTalkRadio.com, or you can comment on it now. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. Let's go to Bill in Boise. Bill, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Oh, good morning, Kevin. I'm surprised all the times I try to get in, it's kind of busy. I just finished a book that you have got to read if you haven't read it already. It's about Muslims, and the title of the book is 1,400 Years of Jihad. These are bad guys. 1,400 years, they've been cutting off heads and doing bad. And, to say it's just we need to understand them, we need to get along, we need to go negotiate. Come on, 1,400 years. You're not going to change these guys. They're bad. That's the end of my conversation with you.
Well, I'm with you, Bill, but, I don't know if we get that. And I don't know if the president gets that. He's made them look bad. And I don't think they're going to negotiate unless he capitulates.
Well, you've got to. I just finished another book. It's about Truman, biography, and it's just a huge deal to send your kids out to get killed. Mother's sons, and I think that shooting down a drone, that's okay, that's bad, but I'm not going to get my mother's sons killed over shooting down a drone. And it's a tough call.
You're a smart guy on this one. And if it were just shooting down the drone, but let's say they start sending up missiles against the real planes, or, as they've done in the past, detain U.S. troops.
Yeah, it's still to send mother's sons to get killed. They detain the troops. That's okay. I'd like to go smack them for that. But you got to think of where this leads. Where does it lead? It leads just directly to mother's sons getting killed. And it's got to be more than just holding somebody for a little while, detaining more, a little bit more, just a little bit more. And then we'll see. I think we'd go to war in just a little bit more, but not right now. That's the way Trump's playing it. He's doing it like Truman. You really got to push me. You really got to push me. You really got to push me. And then I'm going to drop the atomic bomb on your ass. Pardon my language. I got to go. Kevin, it's always good hearing you in the morning. Thank you for your time, man.
Thank you, Bill. God bless. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Might not be up to Mr. Trump, though. Again, we can ask the question, should we go to war? And that's, a pretty good question. And if you're doing a pretty good show, it's kind of good survey radio. But deeper, if you've ever been in a fight in your life, if you've ever been in a contest, sometimes it's not up to you. Bill's point is we don't want to lose anybody. God bless him. He's right. We don't want any more people coming back here dead. Sometimes you go to a place and you've got no choice. You either, and North Korea might be the other one. North Korea might be the other one where you have to determine what you're going to do. If you've seen the HBO miniseries Chernobyl, and I understand it's a docudrama, there's a reason why. It's the most watched television show of all time. Bigger than anything else. Bigger than Game of Thrones. Bigger than MASH. Bigger than anything else. It's a pretty boring show, really. But you have people that in this docudrama where the scientists are trying to stop the catastrophe that could have destroyed Europe, contaminated water for millions of years because of the Russian or the Soviet Union's negligence, where they put people in knowing they're going to die because of the exposure to radiation. 700,000 people had to go in and clean up that mess, knowing that they were going to be exposed to radiation. There were some people that they would have to go clear off the roof, and they'd only could be exposed for 90 seconds. You had a group of miners that were desperately digging a mine by hand underneath Chernobyl to put in a fail-safe to make sure the water table was not contaminated because the reactor kept melting down. I think, fortunately, they didn't have to do that, but those miners died. And you have to look at lives, and it's easy for us to say, go get them, boys. But if they're going to attack us with a nuclear weapon, the lives of some versus the lives of an entire nation. That's why there is heavy the burden that wears the crown. And there's a difference. And look, I've been some of those people. Sometimes you just don't make sense. You're stupid. And the president might be dealing with cagey, stupid people when we're talking about the Iranians. Hopefully, and let's pray that's not the case. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller in the morning, traffic and weather together. Good morning, Dave. And I'm Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget Glenn Beck coming up next, and we'll see you at the Boise Music Festival coming up tomorrow. So we've got this new Mustang out. The 2020 model comes out Wednesday. The GT500 will have a 760 horsepower engine. That will give you a torque of 625 foot-pounds of torque, making it the fastest street-legal Mustang in history. Ray and I, great job as always. Thank everybody. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate it. Please tell a friend. We'd love to join you each and every morning. God bless everybody. Keep the faith.